Good evening, Tuscaloosa. How are you doing out there, internet world? West Alabama, downtown Northport. Everybody who's watching us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. You're watching us on YouTube, on all kinds of places. This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. It's been a crazy day. It's been a busy day right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. Appreciate everybody looking around and playing with us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon. You can listen to us on all those platforms. Download, rate, review, subscribe. Give me a little 5 stars or tell me how crazy I am. You can find me on the social media machines at Joe Gaither6 on all the social media machines. Send me a friend request, send me a comment, a like, a question, comment, and concern. My man Taylor Gibson already jumping in on the comment section, asking how we're doing with our lives. Today was a pretty crazy day, pretty fun day, pretty interesting day. So yeah, I'm doing well with my life. I hope you are as well, Taylor. You will be up next week when the Alabama Crimson Tide hosts your Tennessee Vols. But we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. We are 4 or 5 days away from, no, we're 3 days away. Goodness gracious, the days are getting away from me. A little behind on my week, as you can tell. The days are getting away from me. We're having homecoming this weekend against the Arkansas Razorbacks. It's going to be a fun weekend. I can promise you it will be a victorious weekend for your Alabama Crimson Tide. So let's talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks. Let's talk about what Nick Saban and Sam Pittman had to say today on the SEC teleconference. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about injury status for the Alabama Crimson Tide. 2 big injuries that coach kind of updated a little bit. We'll talk about Arkansas's problems. Mark Stoops, just a little bit. Mark Stoops hanging out, making some headwaves with Big Blue Nation after their big old loss, their massive loss to Georgia today over the past weekend. We will end with SEC Silly Sound week number 6, and we will name some midseason MVPs. What are we, six games into Alabama's season? A&M, Taylor and the Tennessee Vols focused on Texas A&M. So hopefully the Tennessee Vols will get it done and beat Texas A&M. So, give a little cushion for Alabama. But we'll talk Tennessee next week. We cannot wait for that. Let's start with we got midseason MVPs, Malachi Moore, James Burnip, Arkansas's offensive line, Dan Enos, and much, much more right here on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com, the Sports Illustrated home for your Alabama Crimson Tide. Let's start with Malachi Moore. Let's start with the SEC teleconference from today. Excuse me, my voice sounds a little funny to me, so we'll fight through it. Maybe it's just because we're doing an evening show. All right, so Nick Saban talked today on the SEC teleconference about an updated Malachi Moore and James Burnip status, basically saying to the extent that both of them are day-to-day, and he is preparing and going into the week as if they are not going to be available. Our own Austin Hannon reporting for BamaCentral.com. You can follow Austin Hannon at AustinHannon_ on the social media machines, has reported that Malachi Moore was available at practice today. If you didn't watch the game this past weekend, you can check out the 46 things I noticed from the game at BamaCentral.com. But the big thing pertinent to this conversation was Malachi Moore twisted ankle was coach's comments after the press conference after the game on Saturday. Twisted ankle, and then James Burnip strained muscle in his leg. No news on James Burnip from my man Austin Hannon, but I'm sure he's going to be working on that, usually putting out a nice little practice injury report on Thursday evenings from his sources, and we appreciate Austin Hannon doing that. But here's my thought. Here's my status for this coming up weekend. You're playing Arkansas. Arkansas is bleeping terrible. They're not good. They are not a good football team. Yeah, you can look at the scores. You can play score comparisons with their score against Ole Miss. They lost to Ole Miss 20-27. You guys all know what happened with Alabama and Ole Miss. They lost to LSU 34-31. Everybody's worried about LSU coming into town, and going into the season, LSU was the primary contender for winning the SEC West crown, LSU and Alabama. And they lost, oh gosh, who was the other SEC team that they lost to? Arkansas lost 3 in a row. Let's see. Who was? Yeah, A&M. Duh. Sorry, they lost to A&M. They lost to A&M 34-22. And really, we're never really in that ball game either. Arkansas is a bad football team. And yeah, you got KJ Jefferson, who's passed for over 7,000 yards in his career, but KJ Jefferson is not really a quarterback that scares me. So look, we're talking about Malachi Moore. Malachi Moore has been an absolute stud this year for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Absolute beast, playing safety, playing star, all over the defensive backfield. And what happened on Saturday? Terry and Arnold got moved into his position. You had to bring in Trey Amos. Trey Amos kind of struggled just a little bit. Jalen Key kind of got moved around a little bit. You saw a little bit of Christian Story as well. All three guys kind of replacing the injured Malachi Moore. Obviously, Terry and Arnold already on the field as a cornerback, but he got moved just a little bit. And for a little bit of time against A&M, you had some shaky play from the defensive backfield. Christian Story missed an angle on a tackle, allowed a long 3rd and 14, 3rd and 15 completion. You saw Kool-Aid McKinstry missed a tackle on Anaya Smith. That wasn't really Malachi Moore's position, but I think Malachi Moore really sets the tone and sets the tempo and really sets everyone in the right position from the defensive backfield perspective. Now, Caleb Downs has come along nicely as a freshman, but I would go into this weekend expecting not to see Malachi Moore. As I alluded to at the very beginning of the conversation, Alabama's hosting Tennessee next week. You all know what happened with Tennessee last year. Jalen Hyatt scored 5 touchdown passes from Hendon Hooker, put up 52 points on the Alabama defense. Now, granted, it was in Neyland Stadium, and it was against a different set of defensive backs, DeMarco Helms being the primary culprit last year. However, you are facing probably another great offensive scheme. Now, I know Tennessee's offense has not always performed up to snuff this season. Look at Tennessee's performance against Florida. Tennessee has struggled offensively. Not struggled, but not been consistent. We'll say that, not been consistent. But you're facing a high-flying, fast-paced offense next week. You're going to want Malachi Moore to be full go. If he's close to full go, if he's participating in practice today from our friend Austin Hannon at BamaCentral.com, I don't really think you want to push. I don't think you want to push Malachi Moore. I don't think you want to rush him back into action because I think your much more important game, much more game that's going to be more threatening to you is next week when Tennessee comes to town, comes to Bryant Denny Stadium, and you're wanting revenge after last year's game. Arkansas is no good. Arkansas has lost 4 in a row. They rank, 110th in total offense is what I looked up today when I was talking about Dan Enos. Let me make sure that I was right on that. Dan Enos, where's my article right there that I wrote on BamaCentral.com? Yeah, you're ranked 110th in total offense. Now, granted, they are putting up 31 points a game, which is good enough for 52nd in total offense, but on the flip side, they've given up 22 sacks this season. They're ranked, 120th in protecting the quarterback. Now, granted, Alabama right behind them. A lot of that is due to playing Texas and Texas A&M in back-to-back weeks. Arkansas played Texas A&M as well, and their defensive front got after the Hogs. But Arkansas's offensive line is not good at all. Arkansas focused on the running game against Texas A&M and against Ole Miss and rushed for like 1 yard a rush, 1.5 yard per carry. Very, very poorly. Now, granted, we're talking about Malachi Moore. He's not going to be up there stuffing the run all the time, but he does set the back end of the defense. And I do think that your defensive front for Alabama is going to be able to put a lot of pressure on KJ Jefferson, going to be able to get him to throw some errant throws, going to be able to get him to throw before he is ready. And I do think that the defensive front, especially now that Deontay Lawson is probably much closer to 100% than he was last week against Texas A&M, Deontay Lawson back in the fold is going to be able to stop Rocket Sanders and shut down. I think Arkansas is going to have a very tough time. Very, very tough time this coming up weekend with or without Malachi Moore. What's the current line? 19.5 was the last line that I saw for Alabama and A&M. It is up to 20. Alabama, a 20-point favorite. I think I would take Alabama up to 24, 25 points with or without Malachi Moore. They're just up front. That's where the whole game is won and lost. You guys know this if you watch it. If you watch any sort of football at any level, if you have power up front, offensively or defensively, if you can protect your quarterback, if you can run the football, you will have success offensively. Obviously, Alabama last week struggled running the football, but protected Jalen Milroe pretty well, especially in the second half of the game. Was able to get a lot of downfield throws on A&M. And I think Alabama has been better offensively up front week after week after week. Obviously, atrocious against the Texas Longhorns. If you watch those shows or listen to those shows after that game, you know how poorly I thought the offensive line played against Texas, against the Longhorns right here in Bryant-Denny Stadium. But better last week, better against Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State is not that good either. I think Arkansas is going to be probably second to last in the SEC West. They're going to be fighting for that second to last place with Auburn. I think you're looking at Alabama and LSU right now as number one. Alabama, LSU, A&M, depends on how that's going to shake out. 1 through 3, 4. Maybe Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is going to have a say in that second spot. So there's 4. I got your Mississippi State down there at 7. And so what? 5 and 6 are going to be Auburn and Arkansas in either order, depending on how that game works out. I know a lot of people are liking Auburn to win this weekend against LSU. I don't think I like that. I don't think Auburn can score, can keep up with LSU. But I think you're looking this weekend with the Arkansas matchup, a not good football team coming into Tuscaloosa, and Alabama is on the uptick. Look, you guys can be the biggest Alabama haters if you like, but you cannot disagree that Alabama's game is on the uptick. Alabama's defense has played very, very well throughout the entire year, only giving up 15 points per game. Yes, the fourth quarter against Texas was not good. But outside of that fourth quarter against Texas, you've had really, really lights-out play defensively throughout the whole year. I don't see Arkansas being able to challenge, being able to stress out the Alabama defense, even with Malachi Moore being likely unavailable. Look, you know those trainers over at the Mal Moore Athletic Complex do a great job, and Malachi Moore will be focused on his recovery. I'm sure of that. But I would hold him out. If he's not 100%, I would hold him out, because next week when you're playing Tennessee, Joe Milton and them boys are coming to try to win 2 in a row. Their offense is much better. Their scheme is much better. It does challenge Alabama's defensive scheme much more effectively than Arkansas. I believe Nick Saban is undefeated against the Arkansas Razorbacks during his tenure here in Alabama. You're going to see a nice feature on the 2007 game from Austin Hannon. He's interviewed Matt Caddell, and he's going to be interviewing John Parker Wilson. A lot of people from that 2007 game. You're going to want to look for that on BamaCentral.com later in the week. It's going to be a great feature on the 2007 game. Obviously, Alabama marching down the field towards the end of that game. Throwing the winning touchdown to Matt Caddell, John Parker Wilson to Matt Caddell. So, look, Nick Saban has never lost these guys. Yes, you've had a couple of close games. What was it, 14-13 a couple of years ago in Fayetteville? You've had some close games for sure, but Arkansas is lost 4 in a row. I'm holding Malachi Moore out. That's the bottom line. Now, the other thing, James Burnip with the pulled muscle in his leg. You have much more flexibility this weekend, a lot greater flexibility this weekend, because you're not limited to your travel roster. All the walk-ons can be on the sidelines. Everybody who is anybody in an Alabama uniform can be on the sidelines. Obviously, last week out in College Station, you're limited to travel rosters. I'm not exactly sure what the travel roster number is. Let's find out. College football travel roster size. It says no, that's baseball. How many players can travel for college football? 58 is what I see right here. 58, and so obviously that's why you have Malachi Moore. Let's see. This is up to 70. 70 is FBS. Okay, so that's why you saw Will Reichert. That's why you saw Will Reichert step into punter duties last weekend. I don't think you really want to see Will Reichert punting the ball again, even though he did great. He did good. He did okay. He did okay last weekend. I gave you serviceable punts last weekend. I think you're going to see James Burnip be held out again, and maybe you're going to turn it to the only other punter on the roster, Nick Serpa, or you're going to throw the freshman Connor Talty out there. Connor Talty, place kicker from Chicago, or you're going to throw him out there. I don't think you're going to see Will Reichert handle the punting duties again this weekend. I think James Burnip has been a pretty excellent punter this year. flipping the field and really been helping the defense and helping the offense play field position game. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, why is the Alabama offense not scoring 45 points a game like Bryce Young days and Tua Tagovailoa days? But you've reverted a little bit, and James Burnip has been a huge part of winning the field position battle. This past weekend, he pulls the muscle in his leg during the Aniyah Smith big punt return. Oh, God, what a punt return. He broke, I think I counted 8 tackles on that punt return. Terrible coverage, terrible discipline. But you lost James Burnip on that punt. Will Reichert steps in. I think this weekend you see Will Reichert give those duties over to Nick Serpa, give those duties over to Connor Talty, and pretty much you're going to leave that up to a walk-on. I think that's going to be one of your biggest questions this weekend is who's handling the punting duties, because I think James Burnip is going to be out again. And there's no reason. Again, Arkansas, you can talk about it being an SEC game. You can talk about it, you got to take every game seriously, and you do. You do. But Arkansas doesn't hold a candle to you talent-wise. Arkansas, you can go with a backup punter. You can go with a backup safety this weekend against Arkansas. You don't have to throw Malachi Moore out there at 60, 70, 75%. You can give him an extra week. Because Tennessee, look, I respect Tennessee. I think Tennessee coming into town next weekend, while their season has not gone exactly the way they wanted to, losing down to Florida, but they're still a one-loss team in the SEC. I think that they know they can make their season with a win over Georgia or a win over Alabama or both. So you got to get Malachi Moore ready for next weekend when Tennessee comes to town. And I would give him this week off, no matter where he is health-wise, because you've got your captain back. You've got Deontay Lawson back. Yes, Tresman Marshall has performed pretty decently, pretty well, calling the defensive signals. And I like what you've seen out of Jahad Campbell in his replacement duty. But you've got your captain back. Deontay Lawson is back. And more importantly, we'll use this to transition into Arkansas's offensive line, Dan Enos and Sam Pittman's comments today. Sam Pittman's comments on the SEC teleconference, calling the Alabama defensive ends, the edge rushers, quote, a problem. And he's exactly right. You look at Dallas Turner, you look at Chris Braswell, and even little Quandarius Robinson has really made huge impacts on the Alabama defense. Coach Saban talking tonight about Tim Keenan and saying what Tim Keenan has done, embracing his role as pretty much that interior lineman, has allowed Justin Boygby and Jaheim Otis to free them up to play defensive end, and they've wreaked more havoc from those positions. Justin Boygby last week's SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week, forcing a safety, getting 1.5 sacks, playing very well. But really, for Alabama, it's all about the defensive ends. Alabama's defensive ends of Chris Braswell, Dallas Turner, and Quandarius Robinson have 12 of Alabama's 22 sacks. Alabama 5th in the nation in sacks. The trio's forced 3 fumbles, and they've got 11 other official quarterback hurries. I think if you look at Pro Football Focus, you're going to see that number, the 11 hurries, go way, way up. Arkansas has allowed 23 sacks this year and allowed 47 tackles for loss, ranking 120th and 120th nationally. So this weekend, look, you're going to have a huge problem keeping guys off of KJ Jefferson, giving holes for Rocket Sanders. And so, again, all this swirls back around. Leave Malachi Moore off the field. Let him rest up. You've got a much more challenging offense coming to Tuscaloosa the next week. And then after that, you get a bye week. You get LSU, you go to Kentucky, you get UTC, and then boom, the big old matchup down in the Plains against Auburn. Yeah, I think LSU's offense is dadgum good. I think they're really good. I think that Tennessee's offensive scheme is really, really tough. Have they quite figured it out? Are they operating the same level that they were last year? No, they're not. But does that mean they can't in 2 weeks? Absolutely. They can come into Tuscaloosa and operate at that same level that they did last year in Neyland Stadium. You leave Malachi Moore on the bench. You let him rest up for next weekend's game against Tennessee. Then you get a bye week, and you're playing LSU right here in Tuscaloosa again. I know. It's not the philosophy to take everybody seriously philosophy, but Arkansas is not good. Arkansas is going to struggle to win a single game in the SEC. Now, they're lucky they get to play Mississippi State. They're lucky, I believe, they get to play Missouri as well. I think Missouri is having a great year. They're doing well. They're playing Mississippi State. They're lucky they get Auburn at home as well. I think Auburn is going to struggle to win SEC games this year. They're probably going to give Alabama a really tough game. They're probably going to give Ole Miss a really tough game. But this weekend against LSU, I don't think they're going to be able to score enough points to stay in the game. So look, leave Malachi Moore on the bench. You've got a great matchup, the Alabama defensive line against the Arkansas offensive line that has proved porous at best this season. They went over to Jerry World and didn't play very well. Obviously, Arkansas scored 7 of their points off a pick 6 right after halftime. So, you lost 34-22. You only scored 14-ish. 14 offensive points. I think that you're looking at a great matchup this weekend for Alabama's defense to continue its strong play. But I caution you, I think it's going to look a lot closer to the Mississippi State game, where Mississippi State's talent really wasn't enough to keep them in the game. Now, Zach Arnett did a lot of dumb things, and I don't think Zach Arnett gave his team a great chance to win. I think Sam Pittman is a little better coach. I think Dan Enos is a little better coach. Dan Enos coming to town for the first time since he left a fly-by-night. Oh man, he jumped out of here from Tuscaloosa down to Miami without telling Nick Saban. Now Dan Enos has disputed those claims. 4 years later? But Dan Enos coming back to Tuscaloosa for the first time since his departure after the 2018 season. Look, he's been fine, but he hasn't, obviously they've lost 4 games in a row. They've obviously lost 4 games in a row. They don't have an offensive line. They can't run the football. I think that Alabama is looking at a big, big win. We'll talk to the BamaCentral crew on Friday to see how they feel about the 20-point line. I think I'm leaning Alabama minus the 20. We'll see if that line continues to climb. All right, so let's talk about a solar eclipse this weekend. A solar eclipse. Nick Saban in his post-practice press conference today was reminded. Now, if you listen to Hey Coach last Thursday, he had James Spann as his media guest, and James Spann told him there would be a partial solar eclipse during the second quarter of this weekend's game. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting this weekend in Tuscaloosa. Ideally, if you guys are here, do not look up into the sun during the second quarter when the solar eclipse is going on. James Spann reports last Thursday that it can really damage your eyes. And while I am usually kind of a risk taker, I'm not going to be looking up into the sun. I'm hopeful that none of our players are going to be looking up into the sun. But Nick Saban having a very funny comment tonight. He was asked, how are you preparing for this distraction? Are you preparing for this distraction? Nick Saban saying, we prepare for every distraction. But I think I'm going to text my players about what to do during the solar eclipse, because sometimes when we talk to them, they don't listen. But if you text them, they're going to listen. So Coach Saban taking the jab at the young folks, taking the jab at you, at me, at all his players, saying, he's going to text the players their instructions. He said, if we text the players their assignments, maybe they'll listen and learn a bit better. So look, in the second quarter, when the weather gets wonky, not really sure how it's going to play out as far as lighting. I'm sure everything's going to go fine, and I'm sure it's not going to last very long. But don't look up. Do not look up into the sun. Don't stare directly into the sun and damage your eyes. You're going to want to see the last 2.5 quarters of the game. All right, so on Just a Minute today on BamaCentral.com, our friends Blake Byler and Austin Hannon were debating midseason MVPs for this Alabama football team. All right, so here's our debate. We're going to do it right here. We got several candidates that we can pick from. You want to go obvious, super low-hanging fruit. Jalen Milroe can be that guy. I know you probably aren't happy with his performance against Texas, and that's valid. But Jalen Milroe, the performance against MTSU was very, very nice. Gave a lot of people a lot of hope, a lot of credit. His second half against Ole Miss was pretty nice. He was 10 of 12 and had 2 rushing touchdowns against Mississippi State. And there's no debate that his performance against A&M this past weekend was very, very good, passing for over 300 yards, his first 300-yard passing game in an Alabama uniform. So a lot of easy, low-hanging fruit for Jalen Milroe. You can go really with Tyler Booker as well. Tyler Booker, the leader of the offensive line, but I don't think the offensive line has played well enough week in and week out to nominate or to choose an offensive lineman. You could go with Amari Niblack, his likely most consistent receiver throughout the season. But Amari Niblack, again, not very consistent. He's been in and out. He's been up and down. You can go with Jermaine Burton for his big game against Texas A&M, also having a touchdown pass against MTSU. But again, through 6 games, not consistent. Not consistent out of Jermaine Burton either. I think those are nice nominations. I like Jace McClellan as a nominee. I saw some detractors about Jace McClellan over the weekend saying, "Oh, he's not a true Alabama running back. He's not a 3-down back. He only should get 10 to 12 carries." I think Jace works better. I think Jason and Roydell are so similar that they both operate better when they have up to 15 to 20 carries in the game. And as the game goes on, those guys get stronger. But no, I'm not going to go Jace McClellan either. Go on the other side of the football. You can go with Kool-Aid McKinstry, the likely top 4, top 5, top 10 overall draft pick this coming up year. You can go with them. I like Dallas Turner. I like Chris Braswell as nominees, but I'm going to go with my man, Terrion Arnold. I think Terrion Arnold is the MVP, the midseason MVP right now, because he was expected to be the weak link in this year's secondary. I guess you can go with Caleb Downs if you want to. Caleb Downs as a true freshman, but I don't want to give overshadow everyone's efforts by a true freshman. Now, Caleb Downs, your time will come. You will be the MVP on this team very, very soon. Golly, what impressive play you put on for the last 5-6 weeks. I know he got burned a couple of times against Texas, but I like Terrion Arnold as the midseason MVP because he is your most versatile defensive back. No, Malachi Moore is not going to play cornerback 2 on the outside. He's basically going to play safety or star. That's kind of what he's going to do. And yeah, he does a good job at it. But Terrion Arnold can play outside corner, can play safety, can play star. You've seen Terrion Arnold return kicks when he's called upon. Returned a kick for a touchdown against USF, called back, one of the 6 touchdowns called back this season. I think Terrion Arnold has proved himself to be a very, very strong cornerback. I mean, he was thrown at in the first game, first play of the game for MTSU, thrown at him. He knocks it away. He's been all over the field defensively, and he's held his own as a corner. Yeah, he gets the 2 PIs against Texas, and obviously the fourth quarter is the fourth quarter against Texas, and you can't erase that. But I think Terrion Arnold has proven himself to be not only your most underrated defensive back, but he has played up to the level that Kool-Aid McKinstry is playing. He's been a leader on the team. He plays special teams. You see him as a gunner on punt coverage. You saw him obviously on kickoff return. Maybe it's time to throw him out there on punt return because Kool-Aid McKinstry keeps bobbling the goddamn football. I like Terrion Arnold as my midseason MVP. Who do you like as your midseason MVP? You can throw it at me in the comments section or on the social media machine at Joe Gaither 6 on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, all kinds of Snapchat, wherever you like us on the social media machines. Of course, subscribe, rate, and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. And comment on the show on YouTube on BamaCentral.com, on BamaCentral's YouTube channel. All right, so I like Terrion Arnold as my midseason MVP. We've hit on the matchup this coming up weekend just a little bit with Arkansas. We will do more of that tomorrow and, of course, hammer it hard on Friday. I want to talk just outside Alabama just real quick with Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops, obviously, Georgia beat Kentucky's rear end this past weekend. A lot of people hyping the game up this past week as Kentucky's chance to take over the East. Kentucky going into Georgia. Georgia hasn't played so good. They went to Auburn and didn't look so hot. Blah, blah, blah. Is Georgia vulnerable? No. Georgia beats Kentucky 51-13, and really the game was never close. It was, 34-7 at halftime. It was never even close. Taylor Gibson watching his midseason MVP, I guess, for his Tennessee Vols, Jalen Wright. That'll be a name for us to write down for next weekend. Thank you so much for watching, Taylor, and chiming in. But let's talk about Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops gets really beat pretty badly this past weekend, 51-13. The game was never in doubt. You didn't have any sort of Graham Mertz kind of it's Graham Mertz, right? No, it's Devin Leary. Graham Mertz is Florida. It's no Devin Leary heroics. He was only 10 of 26 this past weekend, 128 yards. Ray Davis, 59 yards rushing. So, like, it was a bad day for Kentucky. And what happens after the game? Well, Mark Stoops gets on Kentucky radio, KSR, and basically says, for the fans, if you're upset about the result, you can donate to the program so that we can get some better players. He commented, Georgia, they bought some pretty good players over there at Georgia. Very similar, very reminiscent of Nick Saban 2 years ago, talking about Texas A&M has bought their entire recruiting class. You guys remember, what was it, the 2020 recruiting class where Texas A&M had the number one overall recruiting class, Alabama finishing second, I believe, that year. Nick Saban talking about there's some guys that were lifelong Alabama fans that wanted to go to Alabama, but Texas A&M offered them a lot of money. And many people took that maybe the wrong way when Nick Saban said it, but Nick Saban really was trying to rally the Alabama fan base. I got no problem with Texas A&M ponying up the money. I know a lot of people don't like the pay-for-play structure of NIL, but really and truly, when you put the uniform on at Alabama, when you put the uniform on at Tennessee, at Georgia, at Texas A&M, at any of these SEC schools, whether I am Joe Schmo, who I am, average Andy athlete, if Nick Saban recruits me as a preferred walk-on or recruits me as the 25th man in the 25-man class, and maybe I'm Johnny 3-star, well, the second I put on the Alabama uniform, I am valuable. The brand makes me valuable. So yes, pay for play, I think, is absolutely legitimate, because when you go, I mean, why else is Nick Saban recruiting anyone? Why is Jimbo Fisher recruiting anyone? Why is Josh Heupel? Why is Mark Stoops? Why is Kirby Smart recruiting anyone? They're recruiting them because they're inherently valuable. Yes, 247, On3 Sports, Rivals.com, they all say 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. They assign value to these players, but really, the coaches don't care, largely don't care about those recruiting services. The coaches say that Johnny 3-star can help my football team win. I want him on my football team. Boom. If Mark Stoops says you're valuable to Kentucky, you have value. If Kirby Smart says you're valuable to the Georgia football program, the back-to-back national champions, you are automatically valuable. Whether you're Johnny 3-star and you're the long snapper, or you are Dylan Raiola and you're the 5-star quarterback going to Georgia. It doesn't matter if you turn out and end up, passing for 5,000 yards, or if you break your leg and you don't ever play. Knock on wood, we don't want anyone to break their legs. We want health and wealth for everyone in the SEC and everyone in college football. Those guys work very, very hard. But as soon as you step onto campus, your value shoots up. There's a reason why all these programs are investing high dollar on facilities, high dollar on locker rooms, high dollar on dining halls, high dollar on everything, because you want to attract the biggest and best talent. So you always hear the saying, it's not about Jimmys and Joes, it's about X's and O's. Well, Kentucky was never going to compete with the Georgias of the world. Think about it. Okay, let's just put it in Alabama perspective. How many guys did Alabama over the last recent years come from Kentucky? Jedrick Wills, first-round draft pick, what was he, number 12 to the Browns? Mac Jones. Mac Jones was committed to Kentucky out of Jacksonville, Florida, committed to Kentucky, but as soon as Daddy Nick Saban came calling, I'll go sit behind Tua Tagovailoa. I'll be in the same recruiting class as Tua Tagovailoa, where Jalen Hurts is already the starter. I'll wait 4.5 years to get my shine. Damian Harris, Kentucky man. Now, you can debate whether you like Damian Harris or not, but he's 4th, 5th on the all-time leading rushing list for Alabama. He's from the Bluegrass State. They have talent, but the Alabamas of the world are picking them out, are taking the talent from Kentucky. So Kentucky, if you want to compete in the new NIL era, I know a lot of the money goes to basketball. I know a lot of money goes to John Calipari, and you want, your next Final Four. What's the last time you went to the Final Four? 2015, I believe. Oh, yeah. It's been a minute. But Mark Stoops is exactly right. You're playing with the big boys. You're playing in the big boy league. You're not playing in Conference USA. You're not playing in the American Conference. You're not playing in the ACC with Louisville. You're playing in the SEC, and the top of the SEC is Georgia, is Alabama, is LSU and Tennessee, is Texas A&M. These programs are breaking out their wallet. Look, you can complain about pay for play and whether it's real NIL or not, but it's the game we're all in. It's the game where you can disagree with me that, they got to earn it. They got to earn it and be valuable as juniors and seniors. But no, as soon as they sign on the dotted line, I'm going to Alabama. I'm joining a top 5 program. Boom, my value shoots up. There's a reason that Walter Nolan is wanted from Texas A&M, right out of Knoxville. You bet your bottom dollar that Texas A&M ponied up some dollars for Walter Nolan to get him out of Knoxville. Promise you. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure maybe some of the Tennessee fans are upset about that because it's a hometown guy. But hey, that's the way the game is played. Who's the Thompson safety that got in trouble over the summer? His name is escaping me. Oh gosh, the Thompson safety. Let me make sure we get to my, because it's going to drive me crazy. I can go Control F, Thompson. Yeah, Tony Mitchell. Thank you very much, Tony Mitchell, freshman for Alabama. 5-star recruit out of Thompson, playing safety. Yes, got in trouble during spring break, but go back a little further before he committed to Alabama. This is a allegedly lifelong Alabama fan who was basically asking Nick Saban, this program's offering me $80,000 to sign. How much are you going to offer us? Like, that's just the way the game is played now, and it's legal. So you might as well get with it, Kentucky. I have no problem with Mark Stoops basically pushing back on his fan base. Now, a lot of people are saying, you make $9 million. Why don't you give some of that back? Well, Mark Stoops is the all-time leading wins leader at the Kentucky. You got to decide. Do you want to continue to be Kentucky and be the sometimes second, sometimes fifth best team in the SEC East? Or do you want to try to overtake Georgia? Are you really upset with getting your brains beat in 51-13? Or are you just good enough to go to whatever bowl game that you end up going to each and every year because you've been Kentucky all your life? And the last time you won an SEC championship was when Coach Bear Bryant was on the sidelines, before he went to A&M, before he came to Alabama. Like, you got to realize who you are here, Kentucky. You're not ponying up $8-9 million for Nico Iamaleava to come to Tennessee. And I got no problem with that. Shell out the money. You go get Nico Iamaleava. You become a contender. Now, really, you got to go get it in the trenches as well. And Kentucky's been fine on the trenches. They've been good in the trenches for quite some time. But Kentucky fans are getting all upset about Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops said, give us money. We need, you got to decide. Do you want to be good or not? Because this is the game that is played now. Bear Alexander transfers out of Georgia last year, 5-star recruit. And you can talk about the transfer portal if you want to, and that's fine. Your opinions are all welcome and good here. But why does he go to USC? Because USC ponies up the money. They pony up the dollars to get Bear Alexander. They did the exact same thing 2 years ago with Jordan Addison out of Pitt. Like, this is the way the game is played. Jordan Addison, Biletnikoff winner, says, I'm the Biletnikoff winner. I'm going to the transfer portal. Does Alabama want me for a lot of money? Does Texas want me for a lot of money? Or does USC want me for a lot of money? He leveraged his value against the 3 biggest programs in the country. You can disagree if you want, but 3 blue blood programs in the country, and basically went to SC to play with Caleb Williams and make a big old bag in Los Angeles. And now he's doing it in Minnesota for the Vikings. Like, this is just the way the game is played. So everybody who wants to complain about Mark Stoops, everybody who wants to cry about, maybe y'all should donate. Well, maybe maybe it'll make life a whole lot easier. Do you want to keep Jedrick Wills, a Jedrick Wills type who played right tackle here at Alabama for 3.5 years? Do you want to keep a Damian Harris type who played here for 4 years at the capstone? Do you want to keep a Mac Jones type? Now, who led Alabama to a national championship in 2020. Yeah, I know Mac Jones is from Jacksonville, but he was committed to Kentucky. Like, you just got to play the game if you want to play the game, if you want to actually compete. You got to decide if you want to compete or not. So Kentucky fans, either get on board or get out. All right, so that's where I'm at for the show today. I've still got SEC Silly Sound for you guys in my week number 6 edition. I've got Nick Saban in it. I've got Sam Pittman in it. I've got Jimbo Fisher in it. I've got Eli Drinkwitz in it. I've got Brian Kelly in it. And, of course, I've got Lane Kiffin in it. I've got 3 games that were played in the SEC, all 6 coaches that were involved. You'll hear SEC Silly Sound here in just a moment. We talked about Malachi Moore. I would hold him out this weekend against Arkansas because Arkansas is no good. Arkansas is terrible. You can win with Jalen Key, Trey Amos. You can win with Christian Story. You can win with Terry and Arnold playing backup roles and get them more experience. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? You give Malachi Moore an extra week because Tennessee's coming to town next weekend. You give James Burnip an extra week. Really, you probably give James Burnip 3 weeks because you give him off against Tennessee. You get the bye week, and then boom, you get him back for LSU. I think it's very important to build health as you continue the rest of the year. LSU, sure, their defense is not that good, but their offense is very, very good. You're going to want to be operating at a high level when LSU comes to town. You know that game is going to be either 2:30 or 5 o'clock on some of the major networks. It's going to take the stage. And Brian Kelly, obviously, they've lost 2 games already this year. They've lost to Florida State. They lost to Ole Miss. They lost to Ole Miss. If they come into Tuscaloosa and win, that sets everything back right. There's still only 1 loss in the SEC. They can beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa in 4 weeks, and 4 weeks, and they can become back on top of the SEC West with the tiebreaker as they did last season. It's a big game coming up. Arkansas, look, you're going to beat the snot out of them. You're going to beat the snot out of them, and I hope you all enjoy your homecoming weekend. Homecoming parade starts at 7 a.m. Gross. Wake up early and check out the new parade route that's going to be featured down University Boulevard. 7 a.m. parade, and then all the festivities are happening, and it's going to be a big old win. So celebrate the win. Leave Malachi Moore and James Burnip out. And let's move on to the Tennessee week. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to try to get an Arkansas writer or reporter on. I believe we're going to have somebody from allhogs.com join us. On Friday on the show, we're going to have our friends from BamaCentral for Football Friday. It's going to be a lot of fun with Austin Hannon and Katie Wyndham, and you never know who else is going to show up. We're going to leave you with SEC Silly Sound. We'd like to hear from you. Who is your midseason MVP? We're picking Terry and Arnold. I guess you can take the low-hanging fruit of Jalen Milroe, or you can take the low-hanging fruit of Chris Braswell or Dallas Turner, or go off the board like I am and take Terry and Arnold or someone else. We'll leave you with SEC Silly Sound, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.
What do we want to talk about first? The good news or the bad news?
Yeah, I just want to start by thanking our fans. Our student section was out early.
I want to congratulate Ole Miss.
Well, obviously a very satisfying victory on the road.
Good win, guys. This is the SEC.
Our fans were incredible.
I could never be more proud of a group of guys for the way they competed in a game.
They found a way to win.
Execute.
It starts with them. It starts with our players.
Do your job.
Thought the crowd was really good.
Play with poise.
The atmosphere was incredible.
Stay focused.
Proud of our kids. Played their hearts out, played physical, heck of a football game.
Offensively, we've got to find a way to run the football.
We got a lot to work on.
There's things that we certainly need to do better.
We have a lot of things to clean up, but we have a lot of things to be proud of.
Hard to win a game when you can't run the football.
We got to help him a little better.
We've been living on the edge.
And this is a great win for our team. It was a great win for the program.
Obviously, we're trying.
Come back and go to work on Monday.
We got to line up and go play.
I know he played extremely hard.
Major tends to be a little emotional.
That can never happen.
And I think we can have a really, really good team.
I'll have to go back and watch the tape.
I'll have to watch the tape to see if we got any better or not.
We'll have to go back and look and strip it back down to 0 and build it back up.
Just keep playing the next play.
That team gives us problems.
Maybe that would calm some things down.
I wanted to run it better.
Jaden Daniels is just a warrior.
Well, eventually when he threw us the ball, we caught it this week.
And he's a big play player.
Wasn't that something?
No, we try to be 1-0 every week.
He never griped, never complained.
I don't know. That's a crew that calls that a lot.
I can't see.
Poe got hurt. I think Al got hurt.
It's the SEC, guys.
Well, obviously, we had a tough time running the ball.
Braxton got hurt.
They had some nicks and knacks.
Cam Ball got hurt.
We're not going to reinvent, the Bears, defense from 86.
We just couldn't do anything.
Hindsight's 50-50.
Everybody has to improve from top to bottom.
Man, that crazy. We had 0 last week.
Self-inflicted wounds are going to be something that we can resolve.
Nobody can win doing that.
Play aggressive to win.
They're playing for Mizzou.
This may be the record game for me in terms of messing up and still winning.
And you're going to kill me if you keep doing things like this.
I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, we'll pay you a lot of money to figure that out because that's every coach's question.
We just got to do a better job. We got to do a better job.
and I'm the head coach. That's my responsibility to get fixed. And
We take that personal.
It starts with me as the head coach.
we're trying, but I just haven't got it fixed.
We got to score touchdowns in the red zone.
You got to do whatever it takes for you to score. And
No, he shouldn't score. He shouldn't score. He knows he's not supposed to. We actually work on that drill.
It's kind of a negative way to look at it, you know?
It's a little different if they score a touchdown in the end.
You got to score touchdowns in the red zone.
you know, we're all disappointed.
That group in there wants to win as bad as anybody in the state, as bad as we do, as bad as anybody does.
The guys played hard. The kids played hard. They played physical.
We were battling.
I wish I could explain it.
Well, we was tied up.
Everybody's got to take a gut check.
We've got good kids.
I'm just proud of our guys and the way they played, man. This is a great win for us.
And it's caused us some pain in the sense of the structure of our defense.
You don't fight if you don't believe in something.
Yeah, it doesn't matter now.
Anytime you lose, it's hard.
We got 6 games left.
We got a lot of challenging games coming up.
Halfway point of the season, we're 5-1. There's a lot of season left.
I don't think we have any easy games coming up.
It's going to be a very tough schedule.
We don't have to run the ball for 200 yards, but we got to run for 100 and something.
I see my boss over there. You know, this is like his happiest week. It's Arkansas week, so the fact we won versus last year, I kind of got the monkey off my back with him. I'm safe for another week.